Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to the first live episode of the Devotional Drip. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from, and please let me know if you can hear me, if the audio is good on your end. I got my little microphone here, so mic check, let me know. And I'm so excited to be here with you live. This is really special, and I actually just got a message from one of my clients and friends and just dear cosmic star beings within this multiverse, who reminded me that today is actually the 4-year anniversary of Blood, Bone, and Honey starting February 7th. And I completely blanked. Like, I did not have that date in my calendar. And I got this message just like 20 minutes ago reminding me that this is the day that I started my business 4 years ago. So it's so special to come together with you here today live. And I'm so excited to be here with you. Okay, thank you for the audio check. We got it going. Okay, so again, drop your name in the chat. Let me know where you're tuning in from, even if you're watching the replay, so we can connect across time and space. And if you're just tuning in for the first time, welcome to the Devotional Drip. The Devotional Drip is a free higher self-embodiment and personal development coaching series to ignite your higher self connection, support your non-linear journey of healing, awakening, and becoming, and inspire your multidimensional self-care practice across the altars of your personal and professional life. Self-care doesn't just stop at the personal. It extends and expands into our professional life and the way that we serve. So all of these devotional drip transmissions, the intention of them is to water all of the altars, tend to all of the altars. So you can take what you receive here and infuse it across your life. My name is Sarah, if we haven't met before. I'm a higher self-embodiment doula, personal development mentor, and self-care coach for visionaries, leaders, creatives, and light workers walking a courageous path of self-healing, self-mastery, and embodying the consciousness of their higher self in their human body so that they can live, so that you can live the prayer of your divine purpose, again, across the altars of your personal and professional life and ministries. It's an honor to serve you. It's an honor to be here with you and to be in this depth of conversation and exploration around our shared magic, divinity, and light. Let me know in the comments if you could use a little more of that in your life. It really is like when we come together and we're here in real time in the space together, or you're watching on the replay, our energy and our light gets amplified and magnified. And that is one of the most important things about this journey, is not doing it alone, is coming together in community to offer shared experience, to demystify this path of awakening and ascension and healing and embodying your higher self and living your highest timeline and all these things that we talk about in the personal development and wellness and spiritual space. I think personally that it's so important to talk about like what it is to actually go through that process. What is the lived experience? And when I was first going through my spiritual awakening, and as I continue to go on that journey, it really supports me to tune into conversations like this. So this offering comes from a deep place within me that just wants to extend and reach out to that deep place within you that may be wanting to be in some community and conversation around all of this stuff at this time. So as of now, the Devotional Drip is happening live every Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but that is subject to change. So please be sure to hit the subscribe button below and join the newsletter linked in the description below so that you can receive updates when we drop them. Okay, let's anchor into the higher self first. So when I refer to your higher self, I'm not speaking to something outside of you or something that you need to become. Your higher self is already within you. Your higher self is who you actually are at the core, at the center. To embody your higher self is to touch into and breathe life into and live from the truth of who you are as an infinite consciousness in the soma, in the somatic reality of your precious and sacred human body. To embody your higher self is to soften to the voice of truth, sovereignty, love, faith, trust, clarity, alignment, discernment, grace, compassion, beauty, unlimited creativity, and divine solutions that are pouring from within you. So in the devotional drip, we're taking off the mask, we're stripping off the cobwebs, and we're creating space for the innermost truth of your being to come forward and reveal itself in a space where not only is it being beckoned and called forward, but when it does come forward and reveal itself, we celebrate it. And through that celebration of that tender revealing that can feel really vulnerable, we amplify that energy and we invite more of it to be a part of our daily human lives. And then our lives become a ritual and a ceremony. Oh, I just want to say hi to some folks in the chat. Hi, Marissa. Hi, Des. Again, if you're tuning in, drop in. Let me know you're here. Let me know where you're tuning in from. So cool to connect with you guys in real time and space. Okay, so topic introduction for today. We're going to begin the process of listening to that voice within us today through the temple of the throat. Your throat is a temple and your words are spells. What are you creating, expressing, and manifesting through it? We can't talk about self-expression without pointing to the temple of the throat, without pointing to the temple of the throat chakra, Vishuddha, which is its proper Sanskrit name. Vishuddha, Vishuddha. You can even just say it, and as you say it, feel how that word resonates within your being. Vishuddha, Vishuddha. And bring your awareness to your throat as you do. Vishuddha, Vishuddha. This is the space that we're tapping into today. The throat chakra is connected to the element of sound and expresses out as vibration through communication and creativity. The throat chakra is connected to the element of sound or ether and expresses out as vibration through communication and creativity. Your vision, your thoughts, your feelings, and your ideas are brought into the world through the temple of your throat. As you translate consciousness into symbolic structure through the process of communication. I'm going to say that again. Your visions, your thoughts, your feelings, and your ideas are brought into the world through the temple of your throat as you are quite literally translating in real time consciousness into symbolic structure through the process of communication. How often do we take our ability to speak for granted, and how that can deeply provide ministry to ourselves and all beings? So again, your vision, your thoughts, your feelings, your ideas are brought into the world through the temple of your throat as you translate consciousness into symbolic structure through the process of communication. So I invite you to feel into, when am I communicating, feel into, and even just close your eyes and sense into this, not from a pure mind space, but from a mind body space. And you can activate that through connecting to your breath. So from that space, consider, when I am communicating, I am translating consciousness into symbolic structure. When I am communicating, I am translating consciousness into symbolic structure. Feel that in your body. When you're communicating, you are translating. You are translating. As a translator of consciousness, you are translating consciousness into symbolic structure through the process of communication. Let's start out with a little reading from one of my favorite books in the world, the Sofia Code. This is on page 104. Consider your words before they launch your intentions into a universe that must magnetize and arrange your reality according to how you've spelled it out to be, word for word. Consider your words before they launch your intentions into a universe that must magnetize and arrange your reality according to how you've spelled it out to be. Spelled it out to be. Your words as spells, word for word. The first step in creating this personal practice for empowering your speech is to invite your higher self to always guide you in contemplation before you speak. So, self-expression governs the throat. And again, the Sanskrit word for the throat chakra is Vishuddha, which means essentially pure or purification. So I invite you to consider the quality of your communication, both the quality, the texture, the vibration of your self-talk, how you talk to yourself, and then how and what you communicate out into the world. I'm going to introduce 6 different prompts to consider that will also be sent out to the newsletter coven with the replay. So be sure to subscribe below if you're not already. They're also linked on the blog below. So you can click that now, go over to the blog, pull it up, and have those prompts right in front of you. If you scroll down to the blog post for this drip, you'll see them right there. If it helps you to visually see things as you hear them, I know it helps me. So you're welcome to do that. It's already linked. And okay, so I'm going to introduce these 7 prompts. Again, you'll have access to these. I'm going to invite you to journal on them. We're going to start the conversation here. First prompt. How am I speaking to myself about myself? How am I speaking to myself about myself? Is the texture of my self-talk pure? Is it kind? Is it loving? Is it encouraging? Is it true? Does it make me want to get out of bed in the morning? Are there ways that you learn to speak to yourself that you're ready to upgrade to a more empowered, higher self-truth? Where are you self-betraying yourself in the temple of your throat? What disempowering story are you telling yourself about yourself that's not true? On the flip side of that disempowering story is an empowered or higher self-truth. That higher self-truth is available to you through the lens of compassion. Compassion is a quantum healing energy that takes your awareness directly to the root belief systems. We could even say the viral belief systems, the ones that loop and keep you stuck, of your original wounds. So that you may love those places within you that may feel abandoned and unlovable and left out in the cold of disassociation or the fires of your own self-judgment. It's a compassion for where these stories, these lies that we've learned to tell ourselves, or tendencies to self-abandon through our speech come from. Compassion for why you took them on and adopted them as your own. Understanding breeds compassion. Compassion for how that makes you feel and the emotions that it brings up in your body a lot of times when we are identifying disempowering self-talk and we're investigating, like, where did I learn these things, and why do I even tell myself these things in the first place? Like, it can bring up a lot of grief, it can bring up sacred rage, it can bring up all kinds of emotions. So creating space to honor that, and then the commitment to tell yourself a new story, a new truth, and utilize the power of your throat to speak that into being. And do not knock the power of some mirror affirmations, of looking at yourself in the eyes and telling yourself a new truth. I actually have a mirror up on my altar, as you'll see behind me, and I practice in that mirror. I quite literally look into my eyes and I speak truth and blessings onto myself that I didn't receive and are in direct opposition to some of those original wounds. So prompt number 1, how am I speaking to myself about myself? Again, these prompts will be linked in the replay, and they're also going to be on the blog. I'm going to send that out in the newsletter. And you're also welcome to write them down as we're here. The Devotional Drip is a great place to have a journal. Just like while you're sitting, while you're listening, just to write down the things that specifically hit your consciousness. Once you leave this drip, you'll then have like your own little prescription all written out, like all of the things that resonated for you. I'm speaking this into the space, but everything might not necessarily be for you. There might be some parts that resonate, some parts that don't. You get to decide in your own authority and agency and sovereignty what is yours, to do some further self-inquiry around. Okay, so first prompt, how am I speaking to myself about myself? Second prompt, how am I speaking to myself about my current reality and vision that I'm growing into? How am I speaking to myself about my current reality, the now, and the vision that I'm holding and stewarding and growing into? Are you in gratitude for what is now and trust for what is to come, or fear and lack? What if that thing that feels like a block or an inconvenience is actually a blessing of the Most High? What happens when you consider that thing for you, that block actually is a portal? And what if you receive your lessons, as blessings versus inconveniences? Lack of evidence is not evidence of lack. Lack of evidence is not evidence of lack. What you focus on expands. So we can be grateful for, we can celebrate, we can praise, we can pave the way for what's not even here yet. And we can quite literally roll out the red carpet through tending to our now and speaking in an empowered way about what we're facing right now, and simultaneously holding the vision for the future, even if that looks really different than your now. Are you seated in the power of your vision, or are you playing small and waiting for external permission and validation to bring your ideas into reality, which would make complete sense because that's a huge part of the programming we've all been indoctrinated into? That you can't actually give yourself permission, that there's something outside of you need permission and approval from. You need to get that like arbitrary stamp of approval that you finally know enough, you're finally ready enough, you're finally good enough, you're finally healed enough to finally do the thing. Like, I don't do this work because I'm healed. I do this work because I'm healing. And I believe that healing is a non-linear, ever-evolving process. So where are you disqualifying yourself in the way that you speak about your current reality and the vision that you're growing into? The block that simultaneously functions as a portal in the throat, as all blocks do, is lies or untruthfulness. So what lies are you telling yourself about your life and your divinely delivered vision? And what needs to be cleaned up or purified or brought back into truth? Where can you praise your life? As my coach Des would say, like, praise your life. In praising your life, you create spaciousness to roll out the red carpet. And as you're holding the vision for what you want, it actually has space to come in and meet you. Have you ever had the experience of like wanting something so badly and you don't know why it's not happening, and then you realize like, wow, like this whole time I was blocking myself. That's some shit, you know? And what an invitation to have radical compassion for ourselves again around why that might be, and then make new decisions for the future. Because maybe these lies that we tell ourselves are things that we learned a long, long time ago. And they're deeply embedded in the consciousness and the psyche and the body and the being. And it's going to take time to get to those roots, water those roots with compassion, and then grow new seeds of truth. Are you rushing yourself, or are you in steadfast devotional patience? Showing up every day, even if you're not seeing anything change yet. Lack of evidence is not evidence of lack. So prompt number 2, how am I speaking to myself about my current reality and the vision that I'm growing into? Prompt number 3, how am I speaking to others about myself? This can be a real tender one for those of us who have survived any kind of childhood trauma or abuse, because identity work is quite literally the work of self-retrieval. There have been and continue to be so many identities projected onto me by people in pain who don't know what to do from it, who don't know what to do with it other than live from it. The truth is that you can't control whether the projections stop or not, but you can have a sovereign relationship with the way that you navigate them. Truth, Earth Angel, your brightest light will trigger people's darkest shadows. Can I get a hallelujah, bless up in the comments? Yeah. Another truth, when you reclaim your shadow, you reclaim your light. Ah! So your brightest light is going to trigger people's darkest shadows. And then from that trigger in their shadow, they may project some shit onto you, and then that triggers your shadow. But then in the process of your shadow getting triggered, you get to reclaim and retrieve yourself and tell yourself a new truth about who it is that you actually are. Because again, this prompt is, how am I speaking to others about myself? Those shadowy thoughts that you have about yourself, or the parts of you that you hide and think aren't holy or sacred enough or healed enough or whatever, or the things that you don't say because you think people will judge you, is actually the source point of where you retrieve yourself and your power. So, for example, I've introduced this example before because I know there's a lot of folks here that can relate to this example specifically, and I just feel like conversation around this right now is so important. So, personal example, I've been working on a subconscious program or shadowy thought for a long time that I'm not smart enough. I'm not smart enough to do what I feel divinely called to do, which is something I was told over and over again in school as someone with undiagnosed ADHD, neurodivergent, very expressive, different learning styles. It didn't go well. So for a long time, when I would speak about myself to other people, I would make fun of myself because I learned that if I did it first, it would then soften the blow when someone else did. I would joke about not being smart, and I would quite literally take on the projections and play out the identity that had been projected onto me because I didn't know I had another choice. I didn't know that I had a sovereign choice. Has there ever been an identity projected onto you that wasn't your choice, and you adopted it because you thought that that was the truth and you didn't know any better in the moment? Can we just have radical compassion for that aspect of our consciousness that took on lies about who it is that we actually are? And here's the thing. The way that we took those projections on potentially to protect ourselves, the way we did the chameleon thing, or as we could talk about it in terms of trauma response, fawning, so that you protect yourself in an environment that perhaps wasn't safe for you to be all of who you are. Drop in the comments. Let me know if that's ever happened to you before, where you took on an identity that was projected onto you that actually wasn't true, and now you're working to reclaim your true higher self identity because you're ready to leave those old identities behind, like chrysalis to butterfly moment. Yeah. So I would joke about not being smart, and I would quite literally take on that identity that had been projected onto me because I didn't know I had another choice. Compassion for the parts of us that didn't know that they had another choice. So they did what they had to do in order to survive. Like, that makes me want to weep. That makes me want to weep on behalf of any consciousness, any parts of our consciousness that had to do that. What an expression of brilliance and survival. But we don't have to do that anymore. Now we get to choose to thrive. Now we get to self-steward ourselves in the direction of truth. Marissa's saying, yup, I took on the bad kid role. I hear that. Yeah. I took that one on too, and tried to, now I work with it as like the sacred rebel. Like, I got in trouble a lot growing up. Like, I was always the bad one, like doing the thing wrong. And now I'm like, oh, I was just a sacred rebel. And actually, one of our Oracle card allies for today, like, deeply embodies this. So we will get to that shortly. Yeah, Marissa. She said, I took it on deeply. Yeah, it goes deep in the body, deep in the soma. That's why when I offer the somatic journal prompts and somatic movement prompts, it's because um, it's such an act of love to find where these stories live inside of the body. And the movement prompts that I'll offer for this actually invite you to move from your heart, move from your throat, and open this space and find like where some stuff got lodged, you know? Um, Okay, so yes, we take on these identities that were projected onto us, and then we, in our sovereignty, can claim a new one. So at some point during my ever unfolding nonlinear awakening, speaking that way about myself no longer resonated. It felt like poison leaving my lips. And the chief operating quality of the throat chakra is resonance, is vibration. So that was a sign for me that the way I communicated about myself no longer resonated. It no longer vibrated. It no longer was in alignment with where I was ready to go, and with who I had actually become. So now when someone asks me a question about myself, I give myself the gift of taking a deep breath and, like the Sofia Code is speaking to, consider my words before I launch my intentions into the universe. And it doesn't always happen, but we can decide to take that moment, take that breath, take that pause, and speak about ourselves from a place of love and kindness, which is cultivated over time through practice. And there are no shortcuts. It takes time, it takes time, it takes time to water these roots. You will potentially, I don't want to say what you will do. There is a chance that when you get to the root of some of these stories, the grieving process will potentially look different than your mind thinks it should look. Grieving is nonlinear and it takes up space. That your tears, the acknowledgement of your tears can quite literally water the parts of you that have been thirsty for your own attention. To grieve something, to cry about something like that, it is to anoint yourself. So we recognize that we get to show up for the part of our consciousness that got short-circuited in the self-identity process, and the parts of us who are in denial about their brilliance and right to be here. I can retrieve that aspect of myself. We can retrieve those aspects of ourselves by telling ourselves the compassionate truth about who it is that we actually are. And then from that compassionate inner truth, express that truth out into the world. Also, we get to tell ourselves the truth about what happened, the truth about why we believe the disempowering things about ourselves in the first place, the truth that we get to grieve that for as long as we need to, and the truth that the grieving and the retrieval will be nonlinear and often happen at the same time. And the truth that we can and we will and we get to show up for those aspects of our consciousness that we get to show up for those aspects of our human consciousness, resourcing the unlimited light of our higher self, to anoint the people who are still in denial about their power. What parts of you are still in denial about your power, and how does that translate in the way that you communicate to the world about who you are? So now when someone asks me about myself, I give myself the gift of a deep breath. I consider my words before they launch my intentions into a universe that must magnetize and rearrange my reality according to how we have spelled it out to be, or according to how I have spelled it out to be. And this applies to all of us. This is a universal law. So that was number 3. How am I speaking to others about myself? Number 4, how am I speaking to others about my life? Forget the sugarcoating. Tell the truth. But tell the compassionate truth. Tell the holy truth. Tell the loving truth. Tell the story of your life like you're the child of a divine whose divine purpose is to become more love, and that everything on your nonlinear path is part of shaping your body, heart, and mind to be able to hold and embody and live from that truth. Bless up to the sacred vent. Bless up to the sacred vent and the sacred tantrum. Catch the last episode of the Devotional Drip, episode 8 for that. And also bless up to the sacred celebration. There can be room for both. We no longer have to choose this or that. This is a time of and in addition to, holding both, holding the grieving, holding the celebration, holding the grieving, holding the anointing and the reclamation. It's all happening at the same time. So, question number 4, how am I speaking to others about my life? Prompt number 5, how am I speaking to others? The way that we speak to others is a good indication of where we're at in terms of how we're speaking to ourselves. Again, the quality of our own self-talk. The tongue is both a sword and an anointing, expressive, creative lover. So, are you blessing people with your words? Are you slicing through illusions and projections that aren't yours to hold by setting radically loving, fierce, and sacred boundaries when you need to? Are you, light worker, speaking more light into someone's life and being? Is it pure? Is it loving? Is it kind? Is it true? Also, P.S., light isn't docile or a pushover. Light is lightning. Light is atomic power. Light can slice through even the deepest and darkest illusion. This isn't about being nice and making things fluffy. Niceness is different than kindness and compassion. This is about being honest. It's about telling the radical, compassionate truth, even the hard to say / hear things that can hold some of the biggest blessings, because remember, the Sanskrit word for the throat chakra is vishuddha, which means essentially pure or purification. So consider, are your words purifying and illuminating, or are they adding clutter? Give yourself lots of grace and space as you explore this. As a very loquacious person, it's not that more words add clutter. It's about the quality and the texture. The quality, the texture, the resonance, the vibration. Are you purifying the space? Are you speaking truth? Are you speaking blessings into the space? It's not about being perfect. It's about being in a conscious process, in a conscious communion with your higher self. Before every word is spoken, there is an inner communion. You are speaking not just from the mind, but from the connection between the mind and the body and the spirit, which can always be accessed through your breath. And you always have the option to take a moment, to pause, to collect yourself, to gather yourself, to call yourself back from all time and space, and then speak from that self-resourced higher self consciousness within you. Cool, I'm glad this is landing. Yes, let me know in the comments how this is landing. I see fires, I see stars, I see roses, I see 100s. Yes. Let me know how it's resonating. Let me know how it's landing. And let me know if you have any questions. We're here together live, so feel free to drop any in the comments. Okay, number 6. This is our last prompt. What am I speaking about others? The way we are speaking about others is also an insight into where we are in our own relationship to how we speak about ourselves. So again, it's always revealing. If we're not in compassionate, loving, kind, and if we're not compassionate, loving, and kind and honest in the way that we speak to ourselves, that's going to show up in the way that we speak about others. So if we're judging ourselves, we're going to judge others, right? If we're holding ourselves to not a standard of higher self-expression, but some outer arbitrary culturally decided standard of what makes someone good or bad or right or wrong, like chances are you're also holding yourself to those same arbitrary standards. And the binaries are outdated, y'all. I invite you to drop good and bad, right and wrong, and explore in the liminal in-between space. There's just so much more there. There's so much more there, because I know that I don't want to be projected onto as right or wrong, good or bad, right? So other people don't want that either, right? So we can investigate from our own relationship with ourselves and our own relationship with binaries and extremes how we are speaking about others. I personally think that this tender moment on the planet calls for radical compassion and radical grace. When you honor your sovereignty and your process and your tender human process of becoming. We're all just figuring this thing out, right? When you honor the realness of that, when you honor the realness of your journey, when you're in touch with like, wow, this can get really tender out here sometimes, then from that place of embodied compassion and knowing, you can honor others and their journey, period, end of story. When you stop judging when you stop judging yourself, you stop judging other people. We all learned this. We all learned it. We all learned it. We all learned how to survive by scapegoating and calling out that person. Blah, blah, blah. None of that. We're not doing that anymore. That is poison in the throat. It is poison in the throat. You are poisoning your spells when you speak ill of other people, and when you speak ill of yourself, and when you speak ill of your life, and when you speak ill of your vision, and when you speak ill to other people. So I'm just going to run through these 6 again real quick, just the prompts. How am I speaking to myself about myself? How am I speaking to myself about my current reality and vision that I'm growing into? How am I speaking to others about myself? How am I speaking to others about my life? How am I speaking to others? And then what am I speaking about others? Again, you'll get all of these prompts to explore on the blog, in the replay. Let me know what comes forward for you. Shoot me an email. I've been loving receiving emails and messages from the newsletter coven sharing, how these prompts are landing, the treasure that was resourced through doing this level of self-inquiry. Please share with me. I love to celebrate your wins and your discoveries and even the tender moments, even the tender discoveries. Oh, Fabi, you're so welcome. Thank you for being here. Yay, I'm so glad this is landing, y'all. Okay, so those are our prompts. We're going to do a little somatic practice. I'm going to speak a little bit into Aquarius season, and then I've got a couple of Oracle allies to call forward. If you gotta go, you gotta go. It's all good. You can catch the replay. If you're just tuning in, welcome. And let me know that you're here. Hi, Claudia. Thank you for the heart. Hi, Anne. Bless up, honey. Yes. Oh, it's so fun to be here live with you guys. Wow. It's so filling. It's so filling to just hold this space together. So let's hold the space with a little somatic practice for the throat. Yeah. So one of my favorite activations for the throat is lion's breath. Let me know in the comments if you've ever done lion's breath before. So for me, there's no greater ally for our sacred self-expression and rebellion against illusion than the lion. So let's do 3 lion's breaths together to clear the throat. What is lion's breath? Lion's breath is a form of pranayama. So it is a breathing exercise from yogic tradition, and it's used to alleviate stress, eliminate toxins, and stimulate your throat and upper chest. It can be very activating. So if you are in a place of feeling any sort of anxiety right now, or even like tenderness, just be really gentle with yourself and make sure that you've got your body on the ground, like make physical contact with the earth. I'm in like a little squat on a bolster right now, and let yourself feel connected to the earth beneath you before doing this breath. It is an upper chakra activator, so we want to make sure that we're connected to our body and we're connected to the earth so we're not blowing ourselves out. Yeah. Hello, Magdalene Media. Hello, Alive Aligned. Oh, hello, everyone. Okay, so lion's breath, let's get into it. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to inhale through our nose, fill up our lower belly, and then we're going to stick our tongue out on the exhale, and the out breath should be audible. So use this as an opportunity to practice busting through any resistance to taking up space and self-expressing. This is a really good sort of tone check to see, like, am I holding myself back in my expression? Am I judging that this looks too weird or too wild or too whatever? Let this moment where it's us here together live. There's 11 of us here right now. Sacred number 11 in heaven. Hello on year 4 of Blood, Bone, and Honey's birth anniversary into the world at 12:41 p.m. on February 7th, 2022. Let's just harness the power of this moment that we have together in space and do this practice together. Again, Inhaling through the nose, filling up the belly. Exhaling, tongue is going to go out. Make sound, take up space. Let that tongue drip down. When it drips, see if you can feel the connection running from the tip of your tongue all the way down the throat, through the digestive tract, all the way down to the seat of your pelvic floor. Feel the connection between your tongue and the seat of your pelvic floor. This is like full activation into your I don't give a fuck. This is who I am, and this is how I'm here to express. Okay, so starting with the first one, inhale through the nose. Exhale. Inhale. One more. Inhale. Just close your eyes and feel that for a moment. Feel the subtle rearrangement happening within your inner landscape. Take another deep breath into your belly. Let's try a sensual one. Let it move slow. 2 more. Inhale into your nose. And then inhale again and just feel that resonance in your body. Notice what's shifting internally. Maybe place your hand somewhere that you could use a little grounding and touch and love. Maybe even stretch your tongue out. Stretch it all around. Give yourself a little jaw massage moment. Get up in there. Like, ooh, when's the last time you just gave your jaw, gave your tongue, a little love? So that's a practice that you can call on in any moment. Again, it's called lion's breath. It's a form of pranayama. It's a breathing exercise from the yogic tradition, And I find a good 3 to 5 lion's breaths if I'm in a moment of writing or typing or about to speak and I'm feeling nervous, or I'm going into a conversation that feels high sensation for me. A little lion's breath and remembering that I am powerful and that my throat is a temple and that my words are spells and that my tongue is even connected to my higher self. That is a super powerful reminder. Share in the comments how that's resonating for you. How does that feel in your body? How does that feel in your body? I'm going to read this comment, this question. What would you say the difference is between talking ill of someone and simply venting about how they're affecting you if their behavior is toxic? Great question. Great question. My favorite ally for this is Sekhmet, the goddess of sacred rage. And Sekhmet teaches that we get to express on behalf of what breaks our hearts. And when we express from that heartbreak and from that grief, it is sacred. It is sacred. And sometimes you got to speak some things out in the sacred space of your practice so that you can bring that wisdom to the altar of your life and the altar of your real relationships. So what I would say about this, Anne, is giving yourself space within your practice, which doesn't mean you have to be alone. You can be with a practitioner, you can be with a friend, you can have a sacred loving witness there, to speak out and get out all of the gunk as a form of communication. What do you feel? You can speak the real truth about what outrages you and breaks your heart. And then usually at the end of that trail, you find that wisdom and that truth. And it is then from that place of revealing that you can take that wisdom and bring that to the altar of whatever conversation you need to have. It's actually such a gift to give yourself the space to process anger and rage and grief within the container of a practice, with a mentor, with a witness present, that Mentor and witness can be your higher self, which is my favorite part of this practice. It can also be another person. I always have mentors and team professionals, sisters, coven around me where I can express that out, so that when it comes to that relationship that feels toxic, we are then speaking from a place of higher self-resourced wisdom and truth. So I would say clear the way, clear the path, give yourself space to express it out, and then decide, like, what would serve my own outraged heart to speak into this relationship, to say to this person on behalf of my own highest good. Our rage is sacred, our grief is sacred. So this is not about self-censorship. This is about self-expression, and it's about expressing from a place of higher self-conviction. Let me know if that answers your question, Anne. Helen says, definitely need this before an important interview tomorrow to ground and light the passion. Yes, Helen, I'm so glad you're here. Okay, so Aquarius season note. We're also in Aquarius season now, depending on when you're catching this drip. Aquarius is the revolutionary thinker, communicator, and actualizer. Aquarius knows that its devotional rebellion against the status quo in pursuit of the liberation of all beings is sacred. Aquarius is concerned with fairness, equanimity, and balance. So wherever there's an imbalance of control, domination, and oppression, Aquarius is going to clean or lick all that up. So again, the sacred rage practice, I highly recommend tuning into the last video of being a safe, nurturing, and courageous space for yourself. If you've got some tough conversations that you need to have, give yourself the gift of a sacred tantrum within your practice first. So then you can source the wisdom and bring that to the altar of whatever conversation you need to have. So one of the oracle card allies that came forward for today's drip is Mirabai, who is known as the saint of true freedom. I hesitate to hold up these cards sometimes because it makes the focus go all wacky, but we'll see how this goes. So this is from Megan Watterson's Divine Feminine Oracle deck. I know it's a little blurry. This is one of my favorite decks. Megan Watterson is a feminist theologian. She's totally brilliant. Her descriptions and interpretations of these master teachers is such a gift. So if you're looking for an oracle deck, I highly recommend this one. And Mirabai is known as the saint of true freedom. Mirabai embodies a love that lets us do what's right for our own lives, no matter what others might think. She's a Bhakti poet and mystic from India. She was born as a princess in the late 15th century, and she unwillingly married the Crown of Mewar in 1516 because she considered the god Krishna to be her true husband. So she unwillingly married this man because she believed that Krishna was her true husband. So legends say that her husband's family tried to kill her several times for defying the social customs and expectations of a wife. But in each of these legends, Mirabai's love for Krishna, her love for the divine, would miraculously save her. So as the saint of true freedom, she rebelled against social customs and norms, and in the sacredness of her rebellion, in the sacredness of her rebellious self-expression, which was rooted in her devotion to what she believed in, she was protected. Her husband and father-in-law all died in a war in the 16th century, and she refused to join her husband at his funeral, again, defying social and cultural expectations. She became the central poet of the Bhakti Movement during this difficult period, and the Bhakti Movement is a spiritual path focused on the cultivation of a personal love for the divine. Bhakti is a devotional form of worship that believes that anyone can have direct access to the divine, regardless of sex or religion. And Mira believed that the symbol of people suffering under the caste system and the persecution that ensued if anyone tried to defy social and political standing. Mirabai's poems are devotional divine love songs, and they are so widely known and cherished because they relate an unlimited freedom that Mirabai lived out in her love for Krishna, in her love for the divine. She expressed her truth and rebelled against the status quo, quite literally through the temple of her throat. And I'm going to read this, Megan's description, because I just couldn't even paraphrase this. Like, this is just too good. Okay. Often without even realizing it, we make choices based on external expectations, on how we think other people will perceive our actions. Mirabai is about doing what's right for you and no one else. Ultimately, only you can know what needs to be done or said. You have this one brief life, and every second of it matters. Mirabai is about standing up for what you know is right for you, even if others judge you for it. The fear of being persecuted can convince us to not be true to who we really are. There's a love, though, that's far larger than human constructs and cultural values. Love isn't ethical. Love isn't bound by any idea of what's socially acceptable. Love is what sets us free from the expectations that bind us. Love, in whatever way it finds us, asks us to stay loyal to our own soul. Any outside force or person who asks us to betray our most intimate relationship with the divine or with ourselves or with our truth isn't acting out of love. And again, Anne, that's where that sacred rebellion comes in to say, nuh-uh, no way, not here, not on these sacred grounds, honey. You know, like it's that level of fierceness. I actually have Sekhmet up on my altar right now. I pulled her on the new moon. What's up, Sekhmet? Introduce her into the space. For Mirabai, her true husband wasn't the one she was married to. The love that made her brave, the love that inspired her every poem and action was a divine love for Krishna. So the laws that bound her to the strict expectations of being a wife didn't actually apply to her. Love asks us to look at what really matters to us and what we truly value and how we're communicating that out into the world. And love asks us to bravely defy expectations in order to be our true selves. Love wants us to marry our own soul. The prompt she offers here is, what holds me back from expressing my truth? Intention, love is what sets me free. I am married to my own soul. So the way that I channel these drips through is the topic usually comes through first. Like I go into a meditative space and I channel through, like, what does the Blood, Bone, and Honey Collective, like what would serve their highest good at this time? Like higher self, spirit, divine source, God, goddess, source, universe, like lead me, guide me, so I may be of service. And I actually channeled this transmission before pulling Mirabai. So when these oracle cards come forward, they're deeply affirmative of the message shared in the drip. So it's my prayer that Mirabai and the way that she courageously lived her life can set an example for all of us in how we can move forward if we choose. So there's two other oracle cards I'm going to briefly touch on. I'm going to try to never go over an hour on these drips. This one's a little longer because it is the Blood, Bone, and Honey anniversary today, and it's the first live one, and we're vibing, and we're in the chat together, and we're hanging. And yeah, I don't plan to go an hour every time, but again, I'm loquacious. The word is good. The word is deep, so we flow and we trust. But if you have to go at any time, please know that I'm so grateful for any time you choose to spend here. I know your time is precious and sacred. And you can always catch the replay. Okay, so, okay, and that's landing. I'm so glad. Kate says, perfect reminders for me as I move towards rocket ship into space. Thank you, Sarah. You're so welcome. Oh, and thank you, sweet Daria, A Life Aligned. If you do not follow A Life Aligned on YouTube, go subscribe to Dear Daria's channel. She is a force and a beautiful mind-body practitioner, coach, self-care teacher. And she's been dripping out some really amazing practices on her channel that have just been so grounding and beautiful to tune into. So if you're looking for like a meditation right after this to soak in, head to A Life Aligned on YouTube. She is the bomb. Okay, so last two oracle cards. These are from the Faceted Earth deck. This is a new one that was gifted to me by a client, so I forgot the name. Okay, so we've got two here to support this transmission, to support this message. First, we have Passage, which is the return of a spirit to a source. Talk about reclaiming our power. And we have Anomaly, a deviation from the norm that may incite surprise or even fear. Weaving it all together. Through Mirabai's passage, through her passage or connection to the divine or Krishna or source or her higher self, she became an anomaly. And she divinely disrupted the norm through her devotion to the divine, and quite literally through the portal of her throat as a bhakti poet and singer. As a poet and singer, she chose her connection to the divine over the controlling matrices, programs, and illusions of the world that she was navigating at the time. Does that resonate for anyone here? That choice is also available to each of us. No matter how dark it gets in here or out there, we can always walk the passage. We can always return to our source. We can always return to our higher self. We can always return to our breath, to our body, to the divine, even if this is not something that is being celebrated, or even if the thing that we feel we need to express out into the world is in direct opposition to whatever mainstream norm is within your reality. Because personally, I don't believe that there's one mainstream. I think that we all have an interpretation of the reality that we're living. And so within your current reality right now, what rebellious expression needs to come forward for you? As a devotion to your higher self, like, what are you feeling called to do and express and share that maybe other people around you, it may be an anomaly, it may be a deviation from the norm that may incite surprise or fear or even projection. People may project onto you, but you choose to do it anyways. Mirabai was like, dude, I don't give a fuck about what y'all want me to do. This is what I'm here to do. And ultimately, only I can know what I'm here to do. What did Megan say? Ultimately, only you can know what needs to be done or said. You have this one brief life, and every second of it counts. Mirabai is about standing up for what you know is right, even if others will judge you. Y'all, I know that people judge me and project onto me. It's happened to my face, it's happened behind my back. If you step into your leadership, if you step into your visibility, like, it's gonna happen. So if you start resourcing your higher self, then you've always got a bad boo on your team. You've got your higher self riding shotgun with you. You got your higher self resourced. Yeah, Mirabai is a spiritual badass for sure, Magdalene Media. That is true. So as a poet and a singer, Mirabai chose her connection to the divine over the controlling matrices, programs, and illusions of the world she was navigating at the time. That choice is also available to each of us. Drop in the comments. Let me know what you're navigating at this time. So it's actually through her sovereignty, which is the embodiment of her direct connection to Krishna, to the divine, to source, that requires nobody else's permission or validation in order for her to access it and live by it. It requires nobody's permission for you to access the consciousness of your higher self and live by it. It is through that direct sovereign connection and the power of her devotion to what she believed in, despite what everyone else was doing or what she felt she was expected to do, that she fulfilled her divine purpose. It required her to activate the temple of her throat and know that her self-expression was an anomaly for the times that she lived in, and it would create a pathway, both for herself, both for her own soul, and her community. That's why we say, for my highest good and the highest good of the collective. What does that inspire, invite, and mentor your brilliant consciousness to do and express? I don't show up to these devotional drips because I have to, or because I feel like I'm expected to. And honestly, my primary motivation isn't even to strictly be of service, because we got to let go of the martyr light worker paradigm that's like, we are here to be of service, and that is all to other people, not ourselves, other people, which then has us pouring from an empty cup. Blah, blah, blah. So I do this because it's to be in obedience to the divine in my higher self and what I feel called to do. It's to do what I've been called to do, regardless of how uncomfortable or nervous it makes me or how I feel about it in the moment. I am source powered, not external or cultural expectation powered. And it is through that source power that I can then show up and meaningfully contribute to the collective because my cup is full. Not always, but I make an intention to fill my cup. I make an intention to show up resourced and know that ultimately my first and primary loyalty lies in my connection to my own heart and my connection to source. And if I'm aligned there, then whatever moves from that space is going to be in alignment with divinity. Yeah. That's the drip for today, y'all. 1 hour exactly. Yeah. Marissa says, this is helping my sacred rebel, this message. I'm so glad. Yeah. So many of us are here to embody the consciousness of the sacred rebel, right? Like, because we're rebelling against programs and conditions that are actually not in alignment with the light work that we're here to do. So it can feel like a real, it can feel like we're taking something that was inverted and flipping it inside out. I often will express like the feeling of like coming into a new higher self expression or resourcing more, bringing more of the consciousness of my higher self or truth or presence or breath into my body. It can feel like a thawing out and almost like I'm being turned inside out. Anyone ever feel that tenderness, you know? Des says, yes, obedience to the divine creates conditions for congruence with and within the human experience. Speak a word, Sarah. Thank you, Des. Yeah. Thank you for joining me here live today. It was such an honor to connect with all of you here. We'll be tuning in every Monday. Again, the transmissions aren't going to all be 1 hour. This was a celebratory moment. It feels like there's a lot to speak on in terms of the throat right now and how we're communicating. And I know that there's so many light workers here right now who are being called to rise and shine and express out in ways that maybe feel new and tender and vulnerable. So as always, it is my deepest prayer that this supports you. Please feel free to send me an email, shoot me a DM, let me know how these are landing. You can even share things you'd love to hear me speak on in the devotional drip, things you'd love to hear explored within this space. I'm always more than happy to receive those suggestions. So please reach out. Do not be a stranger. If we've never met before, please introduce yourself. I love to meet the people who are real people in this real community. Like, yeah, we're communicating online, but we're all real, living, breathing humans, light workers, creatives, visionaries. Some of us are entrepreneurs. And if you're here, your divine purpose is big, because that's what this space magnetizes. So thank you for being here. Thank you for living your purpose. First and foremost, to become more loved, to embody your higher self. And I will see you next Monday for the second live episode of the Devotional Drip. That will be episode 10 of the Devotional Drip. Please subscribe to the channel. Join the newsletter so you get the reflection prompts. Again, I'm going to send this replay out to the newsletter. I'm going to link my blog. You'll have all of the prompts that we went through today. I will also introduce the somatic movement prompts and the February practice playlist. So you can move this transmission through your body and really massage it into the tissues, into the blood, into the bones. And I'll see you next time. And I love you. And I don't even want to leave right now. I wish I could just reach to the screen and hug all of you. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Many blessings for your day. Go out, spread truth. Your throat is a temple and your words are spells, and you are a powerful creator. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Love you, love you, love you.